Okay. Okay. Here we go. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another webinar conducted by the Family Life Commission of the Jamaica Baptist Union. We welcome all of you who have joined and who are here so far this afternoon. We value your presence and we do appreciate your coming because we know that there are so many other activities that are on for this evening that you could be doing many other things, but you have chosen to be here, and we appreciate that. And we just want to say to you that you will not regret the choice that you have made in being here this evening. So welcome to all of you, and I'm now going to invite a member of our committee, Mrs. Hillary Morgan, to lead us in prayer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Reverend Edwards.
Good
Do I go
afternoon.
ahead and pray now?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. My brothers and sisters, let us unite our hearts in prayer. Mighty, immutable, and matchless God, we thank you for your presence among us this afternoon. We thank you for the availability of this platform on which we can meet to discuss matters and to be informed concerning our well-being. We bless your name, Lord, that you are such a God. You are interested in the outcomes of our lives and you want the very best for us. And so, Lord God, as we meet to think about, to ponder upon, and to be informed about retirement, we pray, Father God, that your grace and your mercy will be with us, will rest upon our presenters, upon the moderator, upon each participant. Lord, let your will be done. Let your people be edified and your name glorified. We pray in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
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 And thank you so much.
Amen.
There are so many issues affecting the family that it is never very easy to just choose one, as we have done this afternoon in choosing the topic of retirement for our focus on the family. Retirement is a growing phenomenon. The fact that we are all living much longer and that so many retirees go back to the job market, it is important to consider some of the impacts that retirement has on the family, particularly in the case where the retiree was the main breadwinner or provided the critical income for the family. What happens when that person retires? Where transitions are made, such as job location away from home, how do persons readjust to living with a family that they mainly visited because their work was outside the home? What do couples do now that they have more time as retirees? When does one begin to prepare for retirement? And what is an adequate financial preparation for retirement? You may have heard this quote by C.S. Lewis: "You are never too old to set a new goal or dream a new dream." And Abraham Lincoln said, "And in the end, it's not the years in your life that count. It's the life in your years." This is often quoted, but we do not necessarily attribute it to the person who said it. So we are meeting here this evening, and we have an excellent panel of persons who are well equipped, who I would say are experts in this field, and who will address these topics for us. We want to acknowledge them and welcome them as they present to us this evening. The first team of persons who are going to be addressing the topic, Planning for Tomorrow, and sharing a book which goes by that title, Planning for Tomorrow. I won't do anything more in preempting those presenters, but allow me to introduce two of our presenters who will begin the innings, if we use the cricket analogy. We have our first presenter, who is a human resource management and development practitioner with over 30 years management experience in both the private and public sector. He is director and the lead consultant at AT Consulting and Associates Management Consultants, which began offering a wide range of services in Jamaica during May 2023, including training in retirement planning and transformational leadership. And her career spans most of the major business sectors, including manufacturing, health, gaming, financial services, food service, education, and tourism and hospitality, locally and within the Caribbean region. She gained her education at the University of the West Indies, both bachelor and master's degrees, and also professional certificate as an international senior human resource professional. She's an ardent community service person, especially working with children and teens to coach, nurture, mentor, and contribute to their development and growth as successful young adults. She's a member of the Boulevard Baptist Church, sorry. Maybe that's a prophetic word. You know. She's a member, I have to talk to her pastor about that. She's a member of the Boulevard Baptist Church and currently works with the Health and Wellness Committee and is coordinator for the counseling ministry. I can't really escape this, but just to say, there's one other little connection with us, which she might say when she does the presentation. But ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mrs. Faith McFarquhar-Gordon, who is going to do the first presentation. Let me just share too, seeing that they are going to do this together. Mr. Priestnell Warren, they are partners in this presentation. He's a managing director and lead consultant at Frontier Business Advisory, a company he founded in October 2022 to shift Jamaica's economic paradigms. He's a business strategist, financial economist, with 18 years experience spanning the areas of banking and finance, economic and regulatory policy, and business consulting. He's also the founder of Vibranium Capital, an asset holding company, Exponential Records, music record label, and more recently, Miss Myra Farms. He has a Bachelor of Business Administration in Finance and Banking and Economics at the University of Technology, along with several certifications from international organizations such as Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, Toronto Center, Vergis Risk Bank, Central Bank of Sweden, and Bangor University and Fitch Learning. He believes in nation building and has been a member of the Kiwanis Club of Barbican since October 2015, where he has served at every level, including president in 2017, 2018, and in the administrative year. He's a lifelong learner and has varied interests, including sports and music. Mr. Priestnell Warren, please welcome him as well. So it is my pleasure to hand over to both Mr. Priestnell and Mrs. Faith McFarquhar-Gordon at this time.
Thank you very much, Reverend Trevor Edwards. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I would just like to say that Reverend Trevor Edwards and I have been friends. We can't even count the number of years, Trevor. We were in high school together. And so this for me is such a pleasure to be sharing with Trevor, working with him in his ministry. And I am so proud of all he has done. So thank you very much for inviting myself and Mr. Warren to share with you, sir, for us in this awesome occasion and very relevant topic. So I believe in interactive discussion. I noticed there are 74 participants online. Congratulations. I know that at the end of the session, you will say it was good to have been here. So retirement. Reverend Edwards did give some initial discussion, definition of retirement. Retirement, based on Dr. Ashwell Thomas in his book, Planning for Tomorrow, says, it often signals the closing of one chapter and the opening of another. The Oxford Dictionary says, the action or fact of leaving one's job and coming home. And then I'll give you another definition where Google says, retirement refers to the time of life when one chooses to permanently leave the workforce behind. I know that we all have a different definition of retirement, but whatever it is, somewhere in there, these points would be included. So, because it's very important to know to whom you speak, I'm going to state some age groups, not asking your age, but I'm going to put some ranges. And I'm going to ask you to go in the chat and put yes when I call that range, if you are in that range. Reverend Edwards and Mr. Warren, I'm going to ask you to count for me how many people would have said yes in the various ranges. So we'll start. Put your fingers on the chat button. First range, members of the audience who are within the 18 to 25-year category. I don't see anybody in the chat yet. Nobody. Okay. 26 to 40 years. Just say yes if that's your range. $41 to $65. And the last category is over 65. Okay, so we have most persons in the 41 to 65 age group, or 26 to 65, a nice wide range. So how do we think of retirement, and how do we avoid it being a negative experience? As with everything else in life, we have to plan. Unfortunately, quite a number of people see retirement as the end of the world. rather than as the beginning of a new phase. I can tell you that I am retired. However, I end up in a consultancy. Wasn't the plan, but I'm enjoying it. The planning, the planning. We're planning to buy a house, we plan to buy a car, we plan for our education, we plan on our jobs, but we don't think about what happens at the end. Now, retirement can be based on government guidelines, 65 and you have to go, or 60. It can be based on the policy of the company with which you are, to which you are employed, or it can be your choice. Some people retire at 50. Some people work until they are 70 or 72. Depends on the organization, it depends on you. But there are a number of factors that you really have to take into consideration. I remember one day I was talking to someone and I said, how are you planning for your retirement? And he said, Miss Faith, Philippians 4 verse 19, ma'am, that is what I live by. But my God shall supply all my needs according to his riches in glory by Jesus Christ. So me not fretting about my retirement, ma'am, because my God will supply all my needs. I said, yes, sir. That is what Philippians 4 verse 19 said. I said, have you gone through the other parts of the Bible that says you must lay up for yourself and you have to toil to earn? He said, Miss Faith, yes, man. But the most important part is that my God shall supply all my needs. We are Christians and we agree. But I then said to him, come to the one-day seminar that we're having for retirement planning, because there is far more to it than just depending on God. So in planning, there are a number of questions that you have to ask yourself. Have I thought about what my life as a retiree will be? May I have a show of hands? How many persons have thought about it? Yes. So we have thought about it. Next question. At what age will I retire? Will my retirement be a voluntary decision or one based on my government or company policy? Think about it. What age? 50, 60, 70, 80. The age that you decide has a lot of factors that are going to determine whether or not you will be able to retire when you plan. When first did I think about retirement and started planning for it? These little Gen X and Gen Z and Gen Y children, from there in high school, they're buying stocks and shares and investing on the stock market. And Mr. Warren is one of those economists who I know that they follow. So when we were going to high school, Rev, stocks and shares were something that were written in a book. We were not involved. So, oh, Jennifer, there are retirees participating like myself. So you can answer the question in retrospect. What financial plans have I been making towards retirement? Mr. Warren will go into all the economics and the financial part of it, but I can tell you, since I have retired a year now or so, what I used to spend in the supermarket for a week has almost doubled. And I'm buying, I tested it 2 weeks about the exact same things that I bought last year, just for testing. And the price literally doubled. So what financial plans have you been making towards retirement? How prepared am I? Have I considered my physical state? Have I thought about living arrangements? Have I thought about my health? My ability to cover my living expenses? Discussions with other family members? Are we close? Is everybody overseas? We have bad blood right now, and when you're old and retired, you're going to need them. Are you married? Do you have a partner? It's not your perspective alone that is going to be involved here. You have to have some discussions with your partner about retirement. Things like transportation, ability to handle the stress. How many of us have really thought about those things? That's not the entire list. So I'm now going to ask participants, 3 persons with a show of hands. Please raise your hand. I want you to 3 people to raise their hand before I ask a question. That's a trick. That's a trick. Tell me one other thing that you think should be considered when you are retiring. And I've seen the hands. Nobody interested in adding? Nobody? I know you like my voice.
There are
but
3 hands up.
Okay.
Claude Reynolds.
Okay. Could you
So a
please
very
go ahead?
important part of retirement involves understanding the environment that you're living in. A lot of us consider retiring in Jamaica. Are we going to be living in Jamaica when we retire? Are we going to be living elsewhere? And you will have to start thinking about difference in cultures, difference in foreign exchange, and is the money I work in Jamaica going to allow me to retire outside of Jamaica?
Thank you, sir. May I have the next participant's contribution, please?
I think that's Shirley.
Okay, I was thinking of housing. Whether you live in your own house or you're gonna be renting, will you be able to afford if you want to move into a gated community, for example, seeing the sort of climate we live in Jamaica, can you afford that? Or do you have to live in the house that you have? Will your house be too much? That sort of thing.
Yes.
And the other one would be your mental state. What is your mental state?
Right. Okay. The third participant, who is that, Rev?
I think it was only
2? Okay, well, somebody did put
yes,
a
Pat
comment in the
Hanchett-Smith.
chat.
Pat Hanchett-Smith.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. If it is possible, make sure you don't have a mortgage to pay.
That's right. That's right. So those are some of the things that you are going to have to consider when you're thinking about retiring. Because if you have a mortgage and you have 1 year left versus having 5 years left, is a totally different plan you're going to have to put in place. So 2024 and beyond is going to see many changes, some of which were accentuated by COVID, of course, which changed the whole world. If you notice the banks, because Mr. Warren is a banker, was a banker, is a banker. Banks are pushing the online banking platform now. You can't go into the bank and make check deposits anymore. You have to use the ATM machines. You find that the senior citizens area is still available in some branches, but in some branches, they don't have it anymore. And so what are you doing? Final expense preparation rather than leading that added pressure on your children. Perfect point. Perfect point. Yes. So here it is now. We no longer have the prevalence of the village, the community. Whereas first time, Miss Nurse, me going down to the bank, you know, you can't just carry my money, go lodge for me. That no longer exists. Scamming, fraud, all of that. So are we getting up to speed with the technology, with the banking platforms? We're using debit cards. I'm not going credit cards because that is debt. But we just have to put our minds in that frame of mind. Checkbooks are literally dead now. So bill payments are online. Bill payments are available online. So you no longer have to stand up in the line at JPS and Water Commission and telephone company. So those are some of the things that you have to think about. And those also have to go into your planning. Somebody said about the final expenses. Whether you're retiring or not, these days, we don't know when. And therefore, that is for retirement as well, but that is a no discussion that you have to make. And those of us who have children, right, one will never know what their health status will be where you have to employ a practical nurse. So when you go into all of those things, all of that is going to add up to money. What will your health look like in the next 10 to 15 years? What diseases and traits are in your genes? Some family is cancer. Some family is diabetes. Some family is osteoporosis. So you have to know those things so that you know that the likelihood of your having cancer exists. One chemotherapy treatment, I hear, is $110,000 or something or the other like that, or radiation treatment or whatever. So if you know you have cancer in your family, you run on by a critical illness policy or something like that. All of that goes into planning for retirement. How old is your current dwelling? Somebody mentioned about the mortgage. How long you been living in the house? When last have you repaired it? How many years do I have left to work? So this year you do one thing, next year you do one thing, next year you do the other thing, rather than have it all pile up and then it's going to cost you millions, or you're going to retire with the house in disrepair. The mortgage again. How long do I have left to pay the mortgage? Many family feuds are born out of deadlift. Whether there is anything to be shared or it's how the debts left by the person will be covered. Did they have insurance? Who did they leave as a beneficiary? Who knows where the documents are? I know somebody who died recently who wrote a will. And when the will was presented to the lawyer, there was only one witness on it, and the will was therefore invalid. So we are planning for retirement. It's not a joke thing. It cannot be left for too late. We are going to have testimonials later on about who planned, who never planned, and whatever. But these are things that we have to prioritize. No. We have to start planning for tomorrow. No. It's not all about when you're retired. It's about how you're going to live. What kind of lifestyle? You want to travel? Do you want to have fun with your grandchildren? Do you want to be able to go to hotels? Do you want to go to the beach? Do you have any friends? You treat people bad? You don't have any cumbelos to go and sit down and laugh with. You go to church, but as church finish, you're gone, and you don't serve on any committee. It's all about your future lifestyle. So planning for retirement, some of the things we touched on, I didn't go too deep into it because Dr. Ans Morgan is going to talk about the impact of retirement on your family. So based on my time, I'd like to say thank you. We're going to have a question and answer session later on, and feel free, anything I never mentioned that you want to know about, feel free to ask about it at that time. Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you very much, Mrs. McFarquhar-Gordon. Thank you.
I see a hand. Oh, clap. Oh, thank you, Brian.
All right. I'm going to invite Priest Nell Warren, Mr. Warren, to come at this time. And then, as you indicated, we'll have more time for questions later.
All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you, Rev, for the invite. Thank you also to Faith.
Good evening.
Right, everyone is hearing me, right?
Yes, we are hearing you very clearly.
I might have a bit of bandwidth issues, so I will just, for the time being, I will just ask to just close my video. All right, so Faith was doing a great job, you know. I think she could have, I sat here and I was quite enthralled. I was smiling. The presentation was really flowing. So I didn't really want to come and be the bearer of bad news because, you know, we have been having some of these discussions that there seems to be a crisis, an impending crisis, where it concerns pension. As Faith would have briefly mentioned, one of the issues that we have in Jamaica, you always hear that, oh, I'm picking them on my pension, right? We hear that comment all too often. But one of the things, there are some genuine concerns overall. And so what I will do in my presentation is to just look at some of what I'd consider some of the structural issues as to why we are not addressing or not adequately closing the pension gap, because there's a huge gap. When you consider approximately maybe just over 100,000 Jamaicans who are in the workforce are actually parties to an approved pension scheme, you consider that number to 1.2 million persons in the workforce, you realize we're not even scratching the surface. And when these persons, if we think about the varying generations, and persons now who are approaching, either approaching or who are currently hitting the age of retirement, you find that a lot of persons will reach the age of retirement and they'll have to, in one way or another, continue to work. Now, Faith mentioned that she works as a consultant, but half the time, Faith is probably on the beach, and I'm not trying to let out any of her secrets. But the truth is, it is a different scenario when you hit the age of retirement and you must continue to work versus having an additional source of income. Now, this is one of the areas I always like to look at, because none of us in this room, no matter your age, should not be solely dependent on one single source of income. I'm a business owner, and for me, I'm now doing my business full time, but I was not doing my business full time for the entire year. I actually, you know, resigned my day job at the end of August. Now, one can imagine if though the business was registered and some amount of income was coming in, I would not have been able to be getting the kind of income to cover all of my monthly expenses. So what did I do? I had my stock portfolio. So I always like to have the conversation about portfolio management. What is inside your portfolio? Your pension should be one of those contributions, right? Faith mentioned the younger generations, they're very quick to think, you know, on stocks, maybe cryptocurrency, And I'm not saying it is for everyone because we all have different risk tolerance, but it could be real estate. It could be a business venture because yes, I do see my business ventures as an investment versus just investing all of my funds in stocks. The stock market has done quite poorly in the last couple of years, all because of Corona and different changes in the environment, such as increasing interest rates, because it becomes more difficult to borrow funds. So persons normally would just, go ahead and just borrow some money and do their business. They probably now have to sell those shares. Also, you have persons like myself that in the past have actually borrowed money to buy shares. Now, when the interest rate goes up, we either have to sell those shares or we won't be able to borrow more money. So it is that kind of relationships when they say, when interest rate goes up, it affects investments. And investments here, it's not limited to investment in stocks. As I said before, it could be investment in a business. That is how the economic term versus the financial term of investment is categorized. So, as I said before, it's important to build out a portfolio. So what is in your portfolio? That is something I want each and every one of us know to begin to take stock of. You know the basics of budgeting. Pay yourself first. Understanding how money works. So the time value of money is a very critical factor. Money now is better than money later, simply because of a thing called inflation, right? Now, is there anyone don't know the term inflation? As again, Faith mentioned it, what she would have been able to buy even last week, possibly you won't be able to get the same items this week for the same price. It's usually a higher price, especially when we think of agricultural produce and we're encouraged to eat more balanced, so more healthier. And agricultural produce move from 0 to 100 real quick. So one of the things we can be doing is starting our backyard farming. I don't want to go too much out on a limb, but as I said before, these are all things we should consider. So you think of your portfolio, there's cash. There's usually income for most of us coming from a job, right? And even if you're running your own company, you should be paying yourself, because sometimes you find that you get so caught up in paying the bills, you're not paying yourself a salary. So that is important. So typically you're getting a salary, right? That is, chances are cash. So that's cash. Most of it pays recurring expenses, but you should be setting aside something for a rainy day. That setting aside now could be a savings account. Now we have to appreciate the difference between a savings account, which can be pulled on typically very easily. Maybe you have an ABM card. Maybe it could be a fixed deposit as well, because that's another form of savings that is a little bit more, I would say, secured in terms of you're not able to readily go ahead and just take it, right? Now there is investments, and investments in this case now could be financial investments, and the stock market is one of those places. Now in 2015 and 2019, Jamaica had the most buoyant stock market in the world, right? Fast forward, Corona came and panic set in, and there's a lot of sell-off in the market. So it goes to show, and let me give you a true story. I'm from the countryside, St. Elizabeth to be exact. So I saw my mother, as I said, I grew up in a farming community. Peanut, peas, corn, you name it, sweet potatoes, etc., yams. And I said to her, as a millennial, right? Sell the cows, sell the goat, and invest in the stock market. Now I'm saying this story to just show you that I have come full circle and to understand that the knowledge that we gain, it isn't just limited to what we learn in school. It is based on even our observation. And it is that reason why it's so important, critically, that both mature persons and younger persons come together and discuss some of these things. Because financial literacy is actually, it's not the lowest in the world in Jamaica, but it's still quite low. Business literacy is even equally low. And notwithstanding, we have a very vibrant entrepreneurial class, because upwards of 80% of our economy is actually small businesses. Now, tying it all together, the failure of the stock market, I realized that there's still an important factor that the real economy plays. And that is why it is a balanced approach is very much important. So even for pensioners, during the height of the COVID meltdown, there's a lot of news articles, television interviews that were speaking to persons who would have been at the age of retirement to possibly delay their retirement or delay taking their pension, simply because a lot of those funds, and I'm going to look for some of the data shortly, a lot of those funds, actually up to 20% of the pension portfolio, and I'll give a bit of rundown now, roughly 5.5%, you could round that up to 6%, of pension portfolio in Jamaica is made up of real estate. 20% is made up of stocks. Another 21% is made up of government securities, and these government securities could be long-term bonds, they could be treasury bills, they could be other forms of money market instruments, such as certificate of deposits, right? A smaller percent is made up of regular commercial bank deposits. And a high portion, of almost 40% of that amount, it's called investment arrangements. Now, this investment, this large pool, which is actually the largest portion of the portfolio, right? Stay with me, is a general category for various types of pooled investment schemes, some of which are called unit trusts. Don't know if any of us have ever heard that name, right? So these are usually pooled investments where from insurance companies, some of the securities dealers, all put funds into a basket, for lack of a better word. And these funds are either directly invested in stocks, maybe bonds, money market securities, or even real estate. You do have a few newer ones, but those aren't as big. Now, as I said before, I learned my own lesson, realizing that part of my portfolio was actually, not even part, a huge part of my portfolio was actually underwater. Now, guess who's heavily invested or investing, because I'm doing it gradually, in small portions, in agriculture? Me, yes, because I've now begun to appreciate the importance of not just looking at financial investments. So it is important to have a pension. Even if your company doesn't offer one, there are also what you called retirement scheme or individual retirement scheme, where an individual can, whether they're self-employed or they're employed to a company, they can go into one of these investment houses that offer these services and inquire and begin one of these pensionable accounts. And pensions are actually tax-free, subject to certain requirements. So it is tax efficient. So it is one of those things that once you contribute to your pension, it actually comes out before the taxes, income tax especially, is applied. So that is another important thing to consider. Now, I did mention there are a few reasons why we have this big gap. So I mentioned the cultural significance of the structure of our family. Born in the countryside, you will hear that, okay, sending the kids to college, because when these kids come up, they'll be my pension. But these days, with changes in economic conditions, you find that even if these kids are quote unquote successful, they're just making enough to pay their bills. So they can't really take care of mommy and daddy and grandma, if grandma is still around, the same way or the ways they wanted to. And so these are things that we have to now consider in ensuring that we have a safety net in place so as not to rely or not to merely rely on our kids, right? Now, I did mention Jamaica being made up of 80% of MSMEs. We still have a very largely informal economy, which means that a lot of our employers genuinely can't afford to keep the doors open if they go ahead and try to set up a pension scheme. It can be a very expensive undertaking. And I know this too well because recently the company, I was at the JDIC, that's the Jamaica Deposit Insurance Corporation. They actually instituted a pension scheme in the last 2 years. It was a pretty lengthy process. And as you can imagine, very expensive. Now, I can't think of a company having maybe 10 employees, maybe making 20 million in revenue, trying to set up a pension fund. It would be next to impossible because of the onerous regulations. So that's one of the issues as well. The regulations. The regulations are quite onerous to good measure to an extent, but it has to be balanced, right? You can't price employers out the market. And at the end of the day, you want them to have something good in place for their employees. So a more balanced approach is necessary. We do have a largely mistrusting, I would say generally in the business sector. Part of that is caused by FinSac, right? I know persons here would have either been directly or indirectly affected by FinSac, and we know the difficulties of it. There is also sort of what I would say, due to financial literacy, we don't yet appreciate, because sometimes when I say to my friends, I'm investing in agriculture, so they'll ask me 21 questions. The questions are fine, generally speaking. When I tell them I don't know all the answers, they'll be like looking at me some type of way. And I said to them, some of the time, we don't always know the end result of something. But that should not be a deterrent in itself for us to actually try new things and to build something bigger. And not everything we're going to put our monies in, because there was a recent pyramid scheme. Don't know if we've heard about it. I think it's called Warner Media. And there have been so many others. I think there was Loom a few years ago. And I won't even mention the other elephants that have been in the room in the past. It's that propensity to think of putting money in and getting it back real time. That is not how investment works. Investments, if you invest, as I said, whether it is in a business, whether it is in real estate, whether it is on the stock market or elsewhere, the bonds, you name it, you sometimes do not make money immediately. And that is something that we have to learn to appreciate and balance, which is why we should not put all our monies. That is an adage that we all should know. Don't put your money in one basket. And so that is very important. So addressing these cultural barriers in the industry will be critical. And critical among that is education and awareness. And that is why It is so commendable that we're having this kind of discussion today. Also, the industry itself has to become more customer-centric. It has always been that approach. We build it. And if you want us, you come to us. And having worked in banking, I can say safely that that is the kind of demeanor, disposition that is held. You need us, so you need to come to us. In fact, I have a webinar coming up on the 8th, and one of the subtopics is actually your banker is your best friend. So you have to be able to build that relationship, but the industry itself has to do a lot more in becoming more customer-centric and providing customized solutions. Now, one of the reasons why the stock market has become very buoyant or vibrant in the past decade was because of heavy investments. And I tell my colleagues this, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, yes, they have their shortcoming like almost any other organization, but they've done tremendously well on public awareness campaigns. They've been in the schools. When I say in the schools, I'm not talking just colleges and universities. They have been in primary education institutions, building that literacy. And it's many of these kids, once they become mature and in a position to consistently invest, they have been investing. And you know what else they do? They have encouraged their parents. And so it's critical for us to collectively face this issue, not to run away from it. I encourage persons, my friends, predominantly to have these conversations. It is very important because at the end of the day, we want to be in a better position so we can adequately take care of not just our recurring expenses, but our emergency ones too. And I recall Faith mentioned even the fact that sometimes we have encountered illnesses that can completely wipe away our savings and investments. And typically, once we begin to build that in our culture, we'll be in a better place to both cover our family and those we help to take care of. Because sometimes we don't just look out for our family, our immediate family. We look out for our friends too, right? I have many uncles and aunts that are not by blood, but by relationships that have built up over time. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Warren. Thank you. Covered quite a lot. There are some questions in the, we have time for questions later, but don't know if you'd want to respond to some of these questions, or some of them are comments in the chat. And some are questions.
Let me quickly, let me see if I'm seeing any of them.
How frequently should you review and adjust your retirement savings plan?
Well, in terms of a retirement plan, it can be done annually. I would say when it comes to savings, because savings and investments, as I outlined in the presentation, they go hand in hand. They're very different. They serve sort of two different purposes. Savings is more immediate. Investments is more long-term. But what I always say when persons ask me, how much should they start to invest with? I always say what is critical is to build good habits. So it is not necessarily something that you have to review. For me, I check my account every day because it's like social media for me, right? That's me. That's the time. That's what I spend my time doing. However, it's not something that you have to do every day. But once you build a habit, I always say that it doesn't matter how much you start with. If it's $1,000, do it consistently. So it's the consistency that is important. So you put in that money aside consistently, sorry. Then let's say at the end of a month, at the end of 2 months, it could be a quarter, it could be half year. You can look, and these days with information on your banking app, for those of us who are using the apps, that is, right? You can check quite regularly. But if that is not the option you have, you can make, various trips time to time, because it's your money and it's critical to check on your money. So it isn't a one size fits all approach.
Thank you very much. Somebody asked too if you could share the information about the webinar you mentioned, and is there a link that they can use to register? So if you're able to put that in the chat.
Yes,
so
I think
that
I
they
can share it in the chat. Well,
Right.
once I settle in a bit, I will share the information in the chat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't
Any
know if
other
there-
question for me?
Right. I'm not sure there. I'm not seeing any other question now, but I don't know if anybody wants to raise their hand to ask a quick question. I think we are doing pretty well for time. We have about 5 more minutes in this segment. So,
Reverend,
yes.
there's another question. Can you join an ARS if you already in a plan? If you are already in a plan, example, if you are working with government.
No, I think it's almost like a conflict of interest. You can't be in both at the same time, right? I also wanted to mention that the older plans are called defined benefit. So, I've worked at CIBC, First Caribbean in the past. And when I joined, there were persons who were there, long-standing workers. They were on the defined benefit plan. For newer workers, we had what is called defined contribution. Now, the primary difference between the two is that on the defined benefit plan, once you work for the company for a number of years, you are guaranteed that initial monthly pension. So let's say that amount is $50,000. You're guaranteed that amount for however long you live. You're guaranteed that. Now, the second one, what is done is that for the time you work, the money is actually invested in various assets, just like I mentioned during the presentation. Some are in stocks, a little bit is in real estate, a larger portion is in pooled investment, and there are also other types of investments that these are in. We got the opportunity to actually select. And so at that point in time, I recall selecting maybe just about 70% of that funds in stocks. Maybe another 20 was in bonds or real estate. I don't remember exactly now. A smaller portion in US dollars, and then a lot smaller amount in money market securities.
Okay.
There's another question. Thanks for this presentation. I lost that one. But what they were asking is about the tax benefits of an individual plan.
Well, the tax benefits is still the same, because essentially what it does, it sort of, so the tax code is done in a way so as not to have double taxation, right? Now we know we pay GCT and we pay other forms of taxes such as tax on gas, right? Tax on even the traffic fines, they're a form of tax. So as not to have double taxation, right? Your pension comes out before income tax is taken out. Because once you get your pension, the pensionable amount, when you begin your retirement, that's actually taxed. So it would be the same treatment whether or not it's an individual retirement scheme with your personal contribution, or it's a superannuation fund that is done by a company.
Okay, the question was, if you are in a contractual position where the employer does not offer a pension plan, is there any way to get the benefit of tax deduction if I set up my own pension plan independent?
So the same would pertain. You would go into a financial institution that offers the option of an individual retirement scheme. And there are several. I do know just off the top of my head. JMMB Fund Managers offers one. I believe Scotiabank, through their, I think either their investment arm, I think they may have a fund management section. They would have offered it as well. That's been a while though since I've gotten that information, but there are several others. I do know there's VM Pensions as well. So there are several other companies in the sector that offers an individual retirement scheme that you can open the account and make your monthly contributions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Warren. Rev,
Thank you
I
too.
know our time is up now. I just like to say it has been a pleasure. And the retirement planning seminar that is going to be held will be held in April of this year. And once we have finalized all the details, Reverend Edwards, we will send it to you so you can share with the members of your team and the membership. And I noticed that you have 143 participants. So heartiest congratulations for the work that you are doing. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Warren. So remember to
Thank you
share
for
the
having
link,
me.
please. Okay.
Thanks to both of you for your presentation so far. And we really, really appreciate the input. As I said, we'll have another little slot to take some more questions, but we are going to move to the other component of the presentation. So thank you very much, Mr. Warren. The next presentation and the next presentations that will follow will include not only a presentation, but a testimony by the presenter and also another testimony by another person. And then we will have some general questions after that. But our next presenter is a child of God by his grace and mercy. He's a consultant psychiatrist, former director of mental health and substance abuse in the Ministry of Health, now retired from public service. She still maintains a private practice and is involved in various projects like Committees for the Homeless and the continued improvement of mental health services, Bible studies, etc., and founder of Marriage God's Way, an organization, small organization that is established to help persons to engage in marriage or prepare for marriage God's way. And so help me welcome Dr. Maureen Irons-Morgan, who is our next presenter. We'll be looking at the impact of retirement on the family, and then she'll be sharing a little more of her testimony as well. Welcome, Dr. Morgan. She's also a member of our committee, incidentally. We are so happy to have her on.
Thank you very much, Reverend Edwards, for that introduction. And I really learned a lot from the previous two presenters.
Indeed.
And there are some things that I had that might look like repetition, so I will skip through them. And I just want to greet everyone on the platform and to say, you know, this is really a very good thing. In fact, I found that one of the important things to do when you're coming towards retirement is to get as much information as you can. So thank Mr. Warren and Mrs. McFarquhar-Gordon. And I am going to, and I must tell you, by the way, I'm not an expert in retirement planning or anything, but I did a lot of research because I wanted to approach, retirement with knowledge. And so I'm just going to talk based on the research and also a little bit of my own story. And yes, somebody said retirement on the beach. And yes, this is true. This is one of my photographs. One of my new hobbies is beachcomber. And by the way, you can make comments. Oh, sorry about that. Am I sharing this? By the way, I'm trying to share a slide. I'm not doing that yet.
No, we are not seeing the slide yet.
Okay, hold on there. Let me get this thing right. Share screen. Then go to this. Then share. Okay, then I go to slideshow. Right, good. So just gonna look at the impact of retirement on the family. And as I said before, there's some information that has been shared already. So I'll just kind of skip through them. But I would definitely want anyone who wants to make a comment along the way to feel free to do so or to ask questions. So Reverend Edwards, if you can see that and if you want to interrupt me, I'll be happy about that, all right?
Okay.
All right, so skipping over this one because Mrs. McFarquhar-Gordon dealt with this, and she did say yes, there are different ways in which people can approach retirement. Recently though, as I was thinking about this, I remembered, I don't know anybody back in my time in literature, we used to do a book called 12th Night, and a Shakespeare book. And there was this character called Malvolio. And he made this famous statement. He said, some people are born great, some achieve greatness, and some of greatness thrust upon them. And when I think about retirement, I think that some people are born planning the right attitude, coming into their job towards retirement. Some gradually reach there and some have it thrust upon them for one reason or another. And that will affect how you, so it can be sudden and unplanned. It can be mandatory, but you're resisting it. It could be mandatory and gracefully accepting it, or it could be forced by some sudden change of the company you're working with or health issues or otherwise. So there's no doubt that it will affect the family dynamics. There are specific effects on the retiree, the spouse, if there's a spouse, children, some most often grown children, but some retirees do have young children, extended family. It may be positive or negative impact. The financial aspect has been dealt with, and then there's an emotional aspect and social status. So just looking a bit at the family dynamics. Roles and responsibilities often change when somebody changes role from being, say, the main breadwinner to someone who is staying at home. And the example that I would like you to think about for it to really come home to you, think about a husband and wife who both work out. And this is a very traditional family, right? The roles are traditional. So the gentleman comes home in the evening, sits in front of the television, turn on the TV, and the wife goes and fix the meal and, put it on the table. Honey, come, time to dinner, whatever. And say no, the man retires before the wife for some reason. This gentleman is now at home. What do you think he's doing during the day? Watching television, catching up on all the sports. His wife comes home tired.
Cook.
Eh? I'm
Cook.
sorry. You think he's cooking?
Sure.
I did say a traditional family, and I said this gentleman doesn't even, well, he has not been cooking. So I'm just kind of talking something that could really happen.
Still Derbyshire,
I'm sorry? Didn't hear that.
I think that person probably had their, not directly addressing you, but maybe had their
okay,
mic open.
Okay, all right. So yes, I'm trying to paint a scenario here. So the gentleman is at home during the days now, but he is watching television, catching up on sports. Wife comes home after a hard day, and he expects that she will fix the meal and serve it to him. And it's very hard for people to adjust to the changes that come with retirement. No, that of course will affect the family dynamics right there, because the lady might do it, but then she'll be resentful. How can I, come home tired and you expect me to do this? And so the whole dynamics will be affected, all right? Sometimes when people retire, they get pushed into a caregiving role for one reason or another. Sometimes, the spouse might need caregiving or the elderly parent. I saw this little quotation that says, parenthood does not retire. And somebody mentioned that the younger generation know they often need some kind of support from the generation that's retiring. So as a retiree, the retiree might find himself or herself in a position where you're being roped into child caring or chauffeuring children around, pick up after school. Some people might enjoy this and might have been looking forward to it. But for some people, maybe it wasn't how you had planned to spend your retirement. Somebody mentioned earlier also the sandwich generation that we sometimes find ourselves in, looking after elderly parents who, with the increased life expectancy, people are living into their 90s. So even as a retiree, you might be supporting elderly parents, and also supporting your offspring. And that could lead you to be stretched and stressed. No, of course, that's not everybody's experience. So the impact on the retiree may be varied, and there's adjustment. For some people, the grief and loss, this is something you're losing a place in an organization. And there's a sense of loss and there's a sense of grief, even if you were looking forward to retirement. For some persons, there may be joy and relief. No, I can go on that cruise that I always wanted to go. My life is a permanent vacation, somebody told me. All right. There may be health concerns, somebody mentioned, including your emotional well-being, including physical, because you are at the age where the chronic diseases and other lifestyle diseases are more likely to be impacting you. Obviously, there are financial concerns, and it depends on whether or not you were adequately prepared. Role of preparation is very, very important. Those who are more prepared have an easier time adjusting. It is said that you should not only retire from, but you should retire to. Think about that. A lot of people think, I'm retiring from this, but you're not thinking about what am I retiring to. And it's a good idea to be retiring to something, because you do have the possibility of new opportunities in different ways, and these new opportunities are not necessarily all about money making. It could be to get involved with some project, or something that you have always been interested in, but you didn't have the time to do it. So the impact on the spouse, roles and responsibilities may be affected. If the spouse is retired or not, it makes a difference. For example, if both are retired, then that might be wonderful. You can spend time together. Mind you, if the marriage was not in a good state and working was sort of giving you time apart, which allows you to be together, then that could be a problem, because now you could have more conflicts and so on coming to the surface. Then again, you have time, you have opportunities to get some sort of intervention at this time. Remember, it's very important to reap what you want to sow. All right, so I mentioned before that those who have adult children might find that they're being called on to do more in terms of child caring, picking up or keeping children and so on. And some people embrace this, and for others, this is not necessarily what they had wanted. They wanted freedom. They didn't want to be tied down to any schedule. It's an opportunity, nevertheless, to bond and to strengthen relationships, even with your adult children. And I always ask people to think of even new things that you can continue to do, even traditions that you didn't have before. Perhaps for those who have children who don't live at home, perhaps it's inviting them over for Sunday dinner, making sure you celebrate birthdays together. You can take the initiative to create the kind of relationship, to support the kind of relationship that you want. You don't have to just look and think about it and say, I don't have this. Sometimes you need to accept help. Now, I put in this term, Swedish death cleaning. Somebody mentioned earlier what this actually describes, because what this is the act of decluttering, scaling down, getting rid of things that you don't need, having that discussion with your grown children. You might have had this particular chair, big chair in the family for 2 generations, and you're thinking you're going to leave it to somebody. Perhaps nobody wants it. Perhaps you should donate it. Perhaps you should sell it and use the money to do something useful. And there may be many things like this, all right? So it is a time to get rid of things that you don't need. As I said, travel light. You could be the family banker. That's another thing. If you have been the main breadwinner, you might find that you're the one who people come to whenever there's an issue, whenever they want money to borrow, even if you don't get it back. So these are things that may change. It is good to be purposeful about making connections. Otherwise, you run the chance or the likelihood of becoming isolated. You can, as I said, create new family traditions. There'll be changes and adjustments. In terms of, your own identity, it is remarkable that if you think about it, a lot of times when you meet people and, you're being introduced, she is this and that, she's a teacher, or he's a banker, or he's, whatever, an attorney or minister of religion or whatever. Our identity is tied up with our occupation. So now when you don't have this occupation anymore, it's almost as if you could lose, go through an identity crisis. Who am I? You're no longer a part of a particular group, part of a workforce. I'm no longer with the ministry of so-and-so, or with such and such a bank or whatever. But it's also a time to make new social connections. And, you know, you can find retirement group within the church. If you're part of a church community, you might find that suddenly you're being referred to as one of the seniors. And, you know, they're talking about seniors group and you're looking around and wondering who they're talking about. And that's, you know, getting used to the fact that you're now in that group. In the community, similarly, those of us who are at my age, who are women, are used to going out on the road and hear people calling you mommy or auntie. Thankfully, they haven't said grandma yet to me. But, you know, there's this clear perception. People are no longer asking you, should you really be in the senior line? Because you know, it's coming on. And so, you know, the whole social interactions there can change. It's a time though for advocacy if you're in particular interest. It's a time to explore new hobbies and to take your vacations anytime you want to. You don't have to apply. All right. So a purposeful life. That's what it comes down to. Embracing a purposeful life, embracing the journey. It is one of the things that's suggested for the one who is retiring is that you should try and start with a ritual, a morning ritual. For some people, it is scripture, prayer, meditation, enjoying nature, you know, nurturing yourself and just feeding your soul. And this is very, very helpful. It is good to have a routine because, you know, when you are working maybe for 20, 30, whatever number of years, you had a routine and then that routine is gone. Now, it is good to have a new routine, but it is also good to allow for spontaneity. So do not be rigid. And it may well be that it takes time to settle down into your routine. I found, for example, that what I started out doing, and I'll tell you a little bit about this later on, is not where I am kind of settling for a while now. Stay connected with loved ones. You have the gift of time. Use it to nurture relationships. It is said that nobody on their deathbed will be saying, I should have made some more money. I should have worked longer hours. I should have bought more houses. It's usually about the time that they spent with the people they love. So if you're fortunate enough to be approaching retirement or at retirement and you have that gift of time, make good use of it. It's very important to keep your mind sharp. Continue learning and adapting. Remember, it is said, if you don't use it, you will lose it. And we all know about dementia. And so, you know, you want to do the things that will continue to help you to keep your mind sharp. Challenge yourself. Every time you see those little puzzles that talk about, tell the difference between this one and that one. Find the 6 differences. You know, all of those little things, word puzzles and what have you, numbers and so on. And keep learning new things. Whatever new is happening, learn about this, learn about that. Keep reading and make peace with aging. That's not always easy, but yes, that is necessary. You can find joy in giving back. The persons who are at retirement have a wealth of experience, knowledge that you can use, you can contribute in some way. You can give back in many ways. You can give your time, perhaps, you know, even like our churches, for example, there are various ministries at church. And give a shout out for Mona Baptist Church. We have a health ministry, and I'm sure other churches have other ministries too, but it's a very good opportunity for people who are retired to go help in the homework center, teach children, impact young lives. That's what's going to make the difference, you know, for Jamaica, if we can impact young lives. All right, take care of your health, physical, mental, social, and spiritual. And so the habits: remain active, healthy eating, find purpose. Now, when I say remain active, a lot of people think that you have to join the gym. This is not so. I think you should find what works for you. For some people, it may be gardening. What am I doing for time, Rev?
You're doing okay.
Okay. For some people, it may be gardening. For some people, it may be cleaning house. For some people, it might be walking with other people. Whatever it is, do be active. Just keep being active. You know, somebody talked about, Mr. Warren talked earlier about the backyard garden that could also promote and support healthy eating as well as activity. Healthy eating, of course, means that you're going to eat more fruit and vegetables, less red meat, less fat in your food, less carbohydrate, especially the more refined carbohydrates, and finding purpose. Finding purpose has been proven to be a very, very important thing. People with a purpose are usually those who find, you know, joy in getting up every day and fulfillment in life. And they usually live longer and healthier. All right, so a little bit about my own journey, just to finish off this. So these are the areas that I'm going to touch as I go through. And so I'm glad I think Mr. Warren, it was who mentioned something about observation. I found that prior to my retirement, in fact, years before my retirement, some people say I was looking forward to retirement. One of the things that I started to do, I started to just observe persons who had retired. And I found that there were people who had retired and they had to work. And they were asking for work. And I wasn't happy about that. And I remember praying to the Lord. I said, Lord, you know, when I retire, I don't want to be begging for work. I would want to work if I want to, but you know. And then I also noticed that there are other people who seem to be enjoying their retirement, seem to be able to do things that they enjoy doing, not necessarily living in any sort of, you know, spending a lot of money, but they were good Christian stewards and seem to be enjoying, you know, life. And they don't have to, you know, be working to make ends meet. And I'm not judging anybody. And I know for some people, it is very difficult. I am just saying my own observation. And I thought, you know, and I prayed that I wanted to make sure that I could do what I would need to do to the best of my ability with God's help and see how, because what I found was that the people who are living well in retirement are not necessarily the ones who made the most money. And there were people who made a lot of money and, you know, they didn't plan for retirement. All right. So, yes, so being a good Christian steward, you know, trying to learn the principles of Christian stewardship, I found to be very important too. And also another thing that I noticed that during retirement, there often people have various health crises. In fact, there were several cases of people retiring and then within a short time, you know, you see they had some serious illness. And it was also one of the things that I came upon in research, where it said that during retirement, one of the most important costs that you could have, one of the things that could wipe out your savings, is health crises. So there's a need to prepare for that. Of course, approaching it by prevention, very important, as I mentioned before, practicing a healthy lifestyle. And then the other thing would be to put appropriate insurance or so in place, some sort of plan in place. All right, so apart from the observation, it was very important to me to gather information. And I did this both formally and informally. So formally, like at the workplace, now, I didn't always get the information that I wanted. For example, at my workplace, I really wanted to know, what is my pension going to look like? Because somebody told me pension is not salary. So I wanted to know what percentage of my salary the pension would be, and I just couldn't get it. So what I did, I kind of, asked other people who had retired before, about how much you're making or whatever, things like that. So anyway, I had an idea of what the percentage of your salary you'd be getting in pension. I remember once meeting this senior colleague who had retired, and I was saying, boy, I'm looking forward to retirement. And she said, oh, hold on. She said, don't rush. She said, continue to collect a salary as long as you can, because pension is not equal to salary. And so I realized that, there's going to be a major change. So, you do all the consultations. Nevertheless, look about health insurance, find out what the coverage is, what are the various organizations that you may be able to get your contributions returned to you, and so on, all of that kind of stuff. And then the informal now, which I found also equally important, was just listening to other people's, experience, just talking with people and so on, and attending seminars. And so I encourage anyone to attend these seminars that are available, whether online or in person, because you can learn. And when you learn enough, you're in a position to make better decisions. Oh, the other thing that I did was consult retirement. Somebody who actually helps you to plan for retirement. Don't remember the name of what they call that, but something like that. So for me, putting plans in place was important. And although we talk a lot about finances, it is clear that it's not only financial plans, as Mrs. McFarquhar-Gordon spoke about, that you need to put in place. But one of with respect to finances, just to mention that, because I'm just going to share a little testimony. So I prayed, as I told you before. I realized and I learned that passive income is important, because whatever your occupation is, you may not be able to do it all the time. And, your money have to earn money, those kind of things. And multiple sources of income, that's another thing I learned about. So one of the things that personally in my family, we got some farming projects going, just to help out. And personally for me, when I was looking at retirement, when I was saying, Lord, please show me something. And so I was praying, and what came to me personally was, you are living in a university town, and student rental property is always in demand. So I began to do my research. I went to where people were taking in students for rental, and I did not like what I saw, what they were offering to the students, but I realized that these places were highly in demand. So I said, okay, this looks like something, okay, if you're gonna invest, taking a chance. The other thing I did, I spoke to people I knew who were business people who had properties and real estate and what have you, and get good advice from them. Somebody asked earlier about tenants. One of the advice that I got, a piece of advice that I got from a neighbor, which I thought, looking back was very good. She said to me, if you're going into rental, she said, listen, the most important thing, check out your tenants and put most of your rigorous sort of scrutiny into the tenants you're getting. Don't look for the most money. Don't look for who can pay the most money. Look for the character, the track record of the person. All right. So anyway, having prayed to the Lord and having felt in my mind, no, this is something I can do, I started looking, and lo and behold, I saw a property advertised, ideal location, went to look at the property, a rundown property in a good location. That's what you need. So I got it at a very good price. Now, just to show that you mustn't follow every advice, the real estate agent was saying to me, I don't think you should buy it. I don't think, it don't look good, it will take too much answer. But thank God I had a vision. And long and short of it, again, got advice from people who know, recommended somebody, etc., etc. My neighbor helped me to get use her discount thing to get, stuff, because they were in the building business, to renovate the property. And what I thought part of my stewardship, and I think God was really leading me here, was that I was trying to put it at the best possible standard, right? I remember the workmen were saying to me, we bother that for after no hotel, not a student. And I insisted that I wanted the best because I wanted something that I would want for myself or my children. Anyway, long and short of it, after the property was renovated now, to my satisfaction, and by the way, by this time I had roped in family members, my adult children, because I realized that it's not, you don't necessarily have to do these things alone, and sometimes you need their input too in terms of money and so on, investment. So after we got the property renovated now, and of course I had friends who, would encourage and come and look and so on. Then now I said, oh gosh, where am I going to find furniture to put in this place? It's a place that accommodates 7 persons. Where am I going to find furniture? This must be a lot of money. And again, I prayed. I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, how am I going to do this? And very soon after, believe you me, I saw an advertisement in the newspaper. And I never used to see these things before. Auction on furniture and household thing, I think it was a Canadian embassy or American embassy, I can't remember which. And, so I said, boy, this is something that looked like I could check it out. And so I went off to auction with my son and my friend's son, 2 young men by my side as I was putting up my hand. Sometimes they're holding it down, mommy, my auntie hold it up, whatever. But long and short of it, at the end of the auction, I was all set with the furniture that I needed, good quality furniture. Guys, I'm telling you, go for pre-owned stuff. You don't need to buy nothing new. These are the best quality things. And since then I've bought, everybody who know me, I'm always now going to auction. I buy pre-owned stuff for my own home. You get good furniture. I think it was 11,000 I pay for the living room set. Good quality things. And, so that was just a nice breakthrough. And so I have this property now that I thank God was a good investment. And of course, real estate, I think is, and I agree with Mr. Warren, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. But real estate is this kind of investment that the property value we know how property value has increased, especially in certain areas of Kingston, and you're still making on your investment more than what you'd make if you had the money in the bank. All right. So that was my little, and subsequent to that, I therefore had with that experience and, you know, the courage and, you know, with God's grace and mercy and so on, and trying to go more and more in that kind of area. All right. And of course, the investment and all those other things important too. I'm one of those persons who had SSL investment, but thank God it has more or less been sorted out now. So there are these risks. And of course, you have to have contingency plan. And I just wanted to say, it is very good to be open. Mrs. McFarquhar-Gordon mentioned that she's doing a consultancy. Now, when I just started out in my retirement years, I thought that, you know, I'm just going to spend most of my time doing some, you know, ministry work. I was going to help out at the health ministry at our church, and that's what I'm going to spend my time doing, and so on. And yes, I'll do some private practice because, you know, to do some private practice, you know, just to keep active and so on. And you like what you do, I like what I do. Anyway, as it turned out, while I was involved in some work at our church ministry, an opportunity came to me. A colleague who works in another region, health region, the southern region, she was planning to go on leave for months. It turned out she went for over a year, and she wanted me to cover. Now, understand, I was more at an administrative level when I left my job. I was director of mental health, and then now I was going out to work in the hospitals, in the clinics. But I went, and believe me, it was just such a wonderful, wonderful opportunity and experience. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I found it interesting and challenging, and just helping me to go back to the days when I used to work in hospital. I enjoyed it. And most of all, I was spending some time with a more elderly lady who was just so loving and nurturing. God really just blessed me during that time. And so and then the opportunity to earn so that you could, you know, do something. Then now after that, my senior colleague and mentor, he was going to retire and offered me to have me take over his practice. So, you know, the opportunity to increase private practice came. And then in addition to that, a consultancy, which I'm now involved in. So I'm at the point now I'm saying, oh my, I don't want to get too busy. But the consultant is something that I'm really passionate about. So as I talk about all of this, you know, anybody who know me, hear me for the past couple of years saying, I want to fulfill God's purpose for my life. And, you know, I think in all of this, I am seeing purpose. I must say, purpose is being fulfilled. I find I definitely want to be a good steward. It's important to be faithful. It's important, I think, to be storing up treasures in heaven. It hasn't all been rosy. There have been adjustment issues. There have been changes. There have been losses. You know, yeah, all of that can happen. Changes in your life, different things that you might have to seek support. It's important to take the time to nurture self, and, you know, and the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and to seek support, whether it's from your pastor, your counselor, your friends, your family, prayer partners. Be patient with yourself too, okay? Because it's a new and kind of evolving field. As I said, finding purpose is so important. It's important to establish goals. And as we, you know, in this time of life, I think it's very important for everybody to consider, what do I want to be said about me when I have passed on? You know, people say you're writing your eulogy every day. Think about that. You have new opportunities. You have time to explore, to travel, try out new hobbies. And these don't have to cost a lot of money. During COVID, we saw that we couldn't do a lot of things that we had planned to do. This friend and I had planned to go on a cruise, a scripture teaching kind of cruise. And it didn't happen because of COVID, and we haven't done anything like that. But we have done the beach combing, as I said, and that picture you're looking at is my favorite beach. You can join exercise program. You can develop new skills. You can find a ministry that you can contribute to. There's a lot of, you know, children out there and people in communities. I'm very concerned about young men in Jamaica. I don't know about you. We need to, as a church, as a people of God, we need to do something. We need to be his arms and legs. Okay, so finishing strong, fulfilling God's purpose. I read recently where somebody was saying that, you know, it's where your core values, your spiritual gifts, and your life experiences, both good and bad, because, you know, well, God worked through all of them for good. All right. So those that you enjoyed and those that were very painful, they all come together, and where they overlap, that is where your purpose is. So I just want to end by showing you some of my pictures that I have taken, because this is now part of my thing, is photography with the cell phone and printing them sometimes, even using them as gifts. That's another thing, you know, you can find ways of saving money. Instead of go buy a painting for a gift, you could print this on canvas and it looks beautiful. You know, you have time to discover new things, to enjoy nature. Boy, I really thank God for the opportunity and the ability to really enjoy nature. You know, that's something that I didn't do as much before. And so this brings me to the end of my little sharing for now, and I'll be happy to talk. Thank you, Doc. I hope, Ref, I hope I didn't.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Maureen. I don't know if there's any quick question, in terms of our time at this point. We might just need to segue into the awesome presentation or the comments we are hearing. Okay, Sister Hillary, see your hand. You can go ahead and ask your question. And then we'll...
Thank you, Reverend Edwards. This is not a question. It is more of a comment.
Okay.
I want to say thank you very much to our presenter. It is not that I was fearing retirement, but she has opened new doors and it sounds exciting. Thank you, thank you. I believe many of us are now armed with ways to face retirement, which seem like such a challenge. But thanks be to God for your presentation.
Thank you.
Right. The comments on the chat, wow, love all the pictures, especially the one Rocky with the pool. Nice picture. Persons expressing appreciation, excellent presentation, passionately presented. And like Mrs. Hillary has said, it's a kind of timely and personable, and people being able to identify with that, which takes the fear out of retirement. Thank you, Doc, and those ideas. Thank you very much. So we are going to move. If we're in another place, I would say if you take a 2-minute break just to stretch, because we are on the home stretch now. And we are on the home stretch. If you want to just take 2 minutes just to stretch where you are. If you're sitting, stand, change position, as we are going to move into the final leg of our presentation. Okay, so if you just want to stretch, if we had space and a little more time, I will take you through maybe one of those exercises where you could do one of those dance that would get you some exercise going. But we don't have much time to do that. All right. We have this is the present, the responses. Yeah, some people are asking about what about your ministry, Marriage God's Way. Some people are anxious to hear about that. Maybe that in the question.
You can tell them to go to the website, Rev.
Right, we have a website.
I'm really excited about that too, and Rev knows. I did mention to you that I've taken on a consultancy project, and it's very exciting. It's about coming up with a plan for the development of child and adolescent mental health services in Jamaica.
Wow.
So I have been kind of taken up with that. However, Marriage God's Way is still very much there. Reverend Trevor, isn't it? And his wife Sharon and some other friends, Johan and Jennifer and so on. And we're excited about it, and you'll soon see something about it.
All right. Happy to hear that. Okay, we are going to move to, we have a final section in terms of presentation. And this is from, we did say we have some main presentation, then we have some testimonies, because it's important for you to hear from persons who are retired and how their lives have been filled with retirement and retirement activities and how they're making the adjustment to retirement. We want to hear from a younger person, a young adult, because we are also saying through the presentations that it is not when you are retired or a few months or a year or so from retirement that you begin to think about retirement. So we have a young person who is married, a former member of the Brownstone Baptist Church and now an active member of the Mona Baptist, a career banker with over 9 years of experience at multiple locations in banking and investment, and considered himself to a humble servant of God. He's Mr. Craig Williams. He's now going to share his testimony of how he has started to prepare for retirement and how that is working out for him. So here is a testimony from, I certainly will not say from the horse's mouth, I'll say from Craig. Welcome, Craig, and it's now your time to share your exciting story.
Greetings, good night. You can hear me?
Yes, we are hearing you very well.
Greetings. Well, testimony is brief, it's short, but ever since I started working, working in banking, so, automatically when you start working, soon as you are confirmed about a month or two after you're added to the pension plan of the company. So the first bank I worked at, immediately after working, I was placed in the pension plan of that company and started doing my contributions. But then I left that company to go to another company. And when I was leaving that company, they gave me an option from the pension thing to either transfer my pension from that company to the new company I was going, or I could have chosen to let my pension stay at the old company, or the option that I took, which was to take my contributions to my pension in hand. Looking back in hindsight, I would have been better off, possibly, allowing that pension and that investment to stay. But, being young and being offered some money, I took it, but I didn't waste it though. I invested that funds in starting my master's and doing my master's. So money was used well and beneficial, but in terms of overall pension portfolio, what I currently have right now is the new company I'm at. I actively contribute to that pension plan. And in terms of Jamaica, you are allowed to contribute up to 20% of, well, the max that can go to your pension overall is 20% of your gross salary. So that's your overall gross salary for the entire year. Only 20% of that can be contributed towards the pension plan. So through the organization, my organization contributes 5% of my monthly gross to my pension plan. Then I have to contribute 5% as well. And then I have up to 10% that I can sign up from to be voluntarily contributing to, my overall pension plan and pension portfolio. And what I've seen is that, they always talk about, especially in my company, we always talk about what we call replacement income, in terms of ensuring that when you retire, that your pension is able to sustain you. So say, for example, right now, I'm spending on average, my monthly expenses, let's say, is 150,000 for the month. Then how is it in the future when I start receiving my pension? What amount of money is it that I think or I see, that I will need to be earning from a pension to be able to sustain or maintain, my current standard of living? So what can be done as well is that if you speak to pension professionals, they can work out what we call in our finance the future value. So that same 150,000 that I'm living comfortably off of right now, for example, you can work out what is the future value of that at the time of retirement. And then you can say, okay, 150,000 right now, using future value in the future around retirement might be 350,000. So then you need to ensure that you are contributing to your pension enough so that when pension payments are coming, it's equivalent to that, so that you can have a replacement. Now, because you can only contribute to one registered pension plan at a time, what you can do is that you can contribute to what some institutions will call a retirement supplement account, where you can invest in portfolios and invested across bonds, stocks, etc. Just something to ensure that on top of your regular pension payments that's going to approved pension plan, you have something else working for you. Also in my personal pension portfolio, I invest in stocks as well. So I invest in stocks that I view as, long-term good stocks in solid company, what we call blue chip companies that are profitable. And what I do is, even when COVID came, and I saw a big dip in my stock portfolio, didn't panic at all, because the funds invested is for the future. So even with the dip with the pandemic, allow the funds to stay. And right now, they're steadily increasing, steadily going, because they're invested in, good, strong companies. On top of that as well, in terms of how I'm viewing, future in terms of a pension, is because I'm married, I look into ensure that, there are funds to ensure that both myself and my wife in the future can live a comfortable life. And I think one of the things for me that's very important is lifestyle choices. So how is it that I choose to live my life? So I ensure that I live first and foremost within my means. There are persons who are living, above their means, and I choose to live within my means. As a matter of fact, I live way below my means. So if my means is X, I'm living below that so that I can ensure that I have sufficient disposable income to invest and to do other things to ensure that I am properly, preparing myself for the future. Another thing that I do as well is that I am very big on ensuring that I create for myself different things that I can do outside of work. So like Dr. Irons was saying, it's how you end and ensure that you have purpose, so that so that when you're transitioning to retirement, for me, I expect that I'm not going to just go home and be doing nothing, but, I find effective ways to use my time and effectively manage my time. And, in terms of preparing for retirement, it's very important that no matter how young you are, you start putting funds aside for retirement, because, things will come and things will happen in the future, So, a quote that I love to use is that right now I am going to ensure that I live like no one else, which is the concept of ensuring that I live within my means, so that later I can live and give like no one else. So to ensure that, I'm living my life in such a way that I'm growing and developing, growing my assets, growing my portfolio, so that in the future, I can still continue to live a wonderful life. That's my short testimony.
Thank you so much, Craig. We really, really appreciate that. Really love the points you made in terms of lifestyle choices and living within your means. And I am so happy to hear that. That's a kind of testimony that, again, we want to hear from a younger person, from someone who, for retirement is quite a little way off, but you have a good vision of what that looks like. And as far as it lies with you, as far as it lies with you, you are putting in place the things that can make that happen. Any quick questions from anyone or comments? Or is there another young adult who wants to share their testimony? Okay. Jewel Spencer.
Yes, I'm not very young, Reverend Edwards, but a comment. One is that I noticed on the list that there are a lot of women, possibly some men too, but I'm not sure the proportion. But just reminding the women, maybe to remind the men, spouses or brothers, that they also need to prepare for retirement, and those who don't have an approved plan with their organization, but they work on their own, they need to now think about going into a pension, what you call it, whatever, the ones that contribute from an employer.
Okay.
Also, the single person, single meaning, yet never married or widowed, that they need to realize that retirement is not just sitting at home. I retired, but I don't call myself retired. I'm in the next part of my life. So that you need to be engaged with persons, your families or church members and so on. And I find that helps you to get the association you need to help you with trying to prevent Alzheimer's or whatever, and to get interested. But there are things you can do, the single ones especially, form groups and so on. So just an encouragement to those who are not married, or those never been married, or those widowers. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Well said and timely, Joel. Christina Ralph.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah, good evening.
1 minute, please.
Oh,
I'm sorry about that. There's another gadget on, so it was creating that
feedback. Okay.
feedback. Yes. I must say, a very timely and informative presentation from all presenters. Now, I have more than a testimony, but I will just take a few, maybe a minute, to say many of the many of the points noted in terms of preparation, what to look for, what can happen when you get to pension age. I can say to you, I had to enter retirement more than 10 years early as a result of ill health. Major. Now, it doesn't matter how much you have saved, when you have one of these biggies, it can just wipe everything clean faster than any, the thing we call whiteout, faster than that. But I would like to say that with God's help, I have gone through. And what I can say to anybody who is thinking that I'm 40 and it's not my time yet, or I'm 50 and it's not my time yet, what I would say to you is that if you plan before you get there, but if you get to retirement age, one of the things that you have to remember is that the environment, the world in which you live, just like one presenter said, you don't have salary anymore. What I would suggest, and it has worked for me, is that since the adjustment is not coming from outside, you adjust the way you live to suit the resources that you have, and it will take you a long way. So basically, you still have the same utility bills. You still have to go to the same supermarkets and you name it. And the prices are not adjusted downwards for you. So you have to adjust from your end.
Thank you very much, Christina. Well said. Really, really appreciate that input.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Any other testimony or experience that anyone wants to share? Or any additional question you want to put to our presenters? This is the last couple minutes we have now as we are winding down. Yeah, we have about 7 more minutes for this slot. So we can take another question or we can take another testimony. All right.
Reverend Edwards, this is...
Yes, Faith.
I haven't put up my hand, but I just like to say congratulations to you and your team for hosting such a relevant seminar. It was my pleasure to have shared, and I really hope that this will help us to start thinking for ourselves and our children and our grandchildren, nieces and nephews. And just want to say that there is a book, Planning for Tomorrow, I put it in the chat, that you can buy to read. And also when we have our seminar for planning for retirement in April that you will all attend. So thank you very much for the opportunity, Reverend Edwards and your team.
Thank you very much again, Faith, and certainly value your input. Here's a question that we want to, there's a question that I want to ask. And whether any of the presenters could share. And this has to do with having a backup plan or contingency strategy in case unexpected expenses arise during your retirement. So you have mentioned the investment, you have mentioned the pension. Just wondered, and you have also mentioned multiple sources of income. The question of whether or how can one start to develop or put a backup plan or contingency strategy in place in case of unexpected expenses arising during their retirement.
Mr. Warren, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, man, I'll give it a go. Insurance comes into perspective here. Because even companies suffer losses from time to time, major companies. But what they tend to do is to insure against the risk of failure. Whatever it might be, whether it's a fire, whether it's a natural disaster. And it doesn't necessarily cover 100%, but some coverage is better than no coverage at all. And I've read horror stories of persons doing well financially over the years, living below the means, right? Saving, building up a safety net. And it takes just one potentially cataclysmic event to just wipe that all away. So it's very important to insure your losses, whether it's your home, whether it's, a critical illness policy. All of these are critical to have. And you might not have all of them at one time, but it's important that we think on these things and we gradually build these things in our expenses as we go along.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a question that was
can
raised.
I just say, Rev, that yeah, just what I agree with what he said, and I think when you look at what are the things that can wipe out your retirement funds, as somebody rightly pointed out, health issues can be one of the major things. So definitely good health insurance, is a good idea. Just want to add that.
Okay, thank you very much. Julia Atkins, go ahead. Yeah, Julian Atkins, I see your hand. You can go ahead.
Yes. Hello?
Yes, I'm hearing you, Julian. Go ahead.
How are you guys? I'm surprised that this generation is so different from the generation before, because my mother never plan for retirement or insurance and anything. So that's just a wake-up call for this generation and future generation that people are thinking about retirement and investing and not relying on their kids, to support them and all of that, which is good. I'm just worried that with the cost of living now, how you find time, how you get to take 5% out of the little money you get to provide to stay alive now, and to put on 5% for when later on. It's so hard. I'm worried. And, it's really, really hard for somebody to survive on the little money that they work and then to put away for the future and to stay functioning now. And in Jamaica, the government don't provide nothing really for retirees, nothing, you can't bounce back on anything. At least you have Social Security in America, where if, at least you have something coming in, and I always worried about that. And just one point, I took out an insurance policy 10 years ago for $30,000, which was a lot of money. And when I check it out last week, and check $30,000 now to $10,000, it can't do nothing. I was shocked. My daughter had to basically go and take out another policy because the money don't value nothing after 10 years. So how you face with that? because you're here preparing for 20 years to come, and then eventually 20 years come, you can barely survive. At least you have something put down, but when you address that, you have to try to survive now, and you're planning for the future. It's really hard to cope.
Good. Thanks for the question. I don't know if well, I see Faith has her hand up. I don't know if she or Warren wants to respond to that. In terms of or even Craig, because I think there's a lot there.
Yes.
I remember years ago, our tutor at the theological college, when I was a student, said that our salary is so little as pastors that if we don't save from it, it's going to be difficult for us to manage. And it is because it is little why we need to save. Maybe some of the experts could take that on, and then we hear from Bonita Main. So, Priest Nell or Faith? Yeah, I think Faith is on first. Go ahead, Mrs. McFarquhar.
I quite understand your plight. The insurance thing is necessary but painful, and that is what Mr. Warren was speaking to about inflation and so. But the truth is, if you do not make the sacrifice now, you will have nothing in the future. And as difficult as it is, it's a matter of painful disciplining and really thinking about the future. You can only save $1,000 now a month. Save $1,000. Don't think about the cumulative effect. Talk to an investment expert, because they can help you to make that $1,000. You put it in the bank, you get 0.004%. That $1,000 you save up and you buy a stock in X, you can get 50 times your money. So what I think you should do now is, instead of trying to do it on your own, you speak to somebody who has the expertise and the knowledge who can guide you. I saw where Craig put in the chat, JMB and some other things, some other entities. I think that is what you need to do. Having worked in the bank, I can tell you the investment people know what they're talking about. And if you go to Mr. Warren's seminar, you know, that is the kind of thing he is talking about. So education at this stage is key. Please take heart and keep healthy, because if you get sick, then you're really going to have a problem.
Thank you very much. Bonita Main, and I think we may need to probably just take one more question that we had on the chat, and then we have to close this section. Go ahead, Bonito.
Good evening, each and everyone. Pleasant
Good evening.
I'm really referring to the 5% for when you're retired persons. Okay. Some years ago, I think before the year 2000, you would have gotten a pension from the ministry, a government pension. But since after 2000, it become mandatory now that 5% of your salary goes to your pension, and that's when you're appointed. So if you are working and you're not appointed, then that 5% will not come from your salary. And I thought I overheard someone said 5% comes from your gross, which is not from your gross. I want to correct that. The 5% is not from your gross. The 5% is from your basic salary, because if you work overtime, it does not count. The 5% is from your basic salary. And then you're allowed, when you can put that up to a maximum of 20%. But at the end, take for example, you might be working, say for argument's sake, $100,000 per month. And you if it's 5%. Now at the end of after working and you're retired, you won't get probably more than about, say, the most you would get is probably about $12,000 per month. Because what they do now is they will offer you a lump sum, and they will categorize it, and they will say, for argument's sake, they'll give you $400,000 and you'll get $10,000 a month. Or we give you $1.5 million and you get no more. We are totally finished with you. You're on your own. And it doesn't carry just like when you're working with the government directly, because what the government do now is sort of like a contract it out. So even though you might be working with the Ministry of Health, you fall under Southeast Regional Health Authority or Southern. So basically, you doesn't now get a pension from the government. You do get a pension from one of these banks, NCB or Guardian Life. And these pension does not, like the government pension, come with an increase. So if you are contributing your 5% and say now it's 2024 and you're getting $12,000 a month, 2028, you'll still be getting $12,000 a month. Where on the government pension, you will get a little increase, as small as it is, you will get an increase from the government pension. But now everybody that is employed now fall under that umbrella where you have to pay the 5%, and it's only when you're appointed. So if you are working for 10, 12, 15 years and you're not appointed, you do not have a pension to get. You'll have to find some other means, some other source to make your own pension. So you can just imagine that one sister says it's difficult, working $100,000 per month. And then now, the thing about it now, when you are working, sometimes you don't feel so sick. And when you are in retirement now, the health card that you have, you still have the health card, but the amount of things, it drops, the health card will drop. So the value, the health card is not as valuable as when you used to work. And that is when you really need it, because when you get 65 now, because if you notice retirement age was 60, and now they are putting it at 65. I'm anticipating that they might soon put it at 70. Because if you check out the scenario, the quicker you die, it's better for these insurance people. That's how I figure it out, because there's a lifespan. After you retire at 65, there's a lifespan, probably about 15 years or so. You know, so I don't know, this pension thing is not a win-win thing for the less fortunate. For us, the working class, it's really not good at all. So when you
Well, thank you very much, though, for the information. That's a lot of information and additional education to the information we have been receiving. Thank you very much, Mr. Main. Dr. Aarons Morgan, and then we need to move towards wrapping up. Go ahead, Dr. Morgan.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to encourage the person who, spoke about how dismal it seems and how impossible it seems. I want to encourage you really to pray and ask the Lord, because when situations seem impossible, God can show you a way. And I have found that sometimes God shows you some creative ways, out of the box that you didn't think about. And you might feel like, oh, I am not earning so much, and therefore there's nothing that I can do. There may be something. One of the things that we saw in COVID were a lot of people who were finding ways of, getting side hustles, as I call it, making, income that they could use to invest or whatever. The other thing that I found that was clear to me is that you can do more together than alone.
Yes.
And I always say to my adult children, it is better to have 10% of something than 100% of nothing. All right, because at any time you're gonna say, I cannot afford this, but maybe if, you know, several people come together, mind you, people with similar mind and similar, whatever values and so on, come together, you can do something. So I just want to encourage her.
Thank you so much. That's an excellent point. I just want to indulge a little. I say we are on time, but I wanted to ask Mr. Presnell if he could just respond to this question. A question was raised earlier about ID theft and cyber challenge, where one could end up losing property, even through the financial institutions. How would you respond to that question?
I think part of the question I didn't hear properly, but I heard ID theft and cybersecurity. Hopefully
right,
you guys are
challenge.
hearing me.
One could end up losing everything.
Yeah. So it is the matter of cyber incidents. They are real issues. And this is why part of what I meant when I said that the generations need to come together. Because let me tell you, I'm 35 years young, right? There are a lot of things that come up that I'm not as quick. So who do I go to? I go to my 20-year-olds, right? I keep them close, so things that they know, I learn. And so that is part of the challenge, because some of these things, they go from very simple to very complex. I see sometimes, and it is talked about, right? You'll hear that my mother might send me a chain message with links in it. And some of these messages, they aren't safe for your phones. These could be hacks. But let me tell you, sometimes hacks can even be a phone call. Let me not go into too much of the Pegasus software, for example. But the truth is, sometimes these hacks, there are cyber incidents, as I would say, they're not high level. The high level ones, you can do little to nothing about preventing it. You probably can react to it, but those are high level ones. And usually they aren't high level, because the high level ones, as you can imagine, they come from higher places, sometimes the government. But the lower level ones, sometimes it's an email. And almost all of us in this room, especially if we bank with NCB, right? We get text messages, we get emails, and it is saying you should change this and you should change that. No, if you're not sure, once you're not sure, go to somebody you can trust and ask them, does this look legitimate? Because I can tell you, I've had a few myself, and if I wasn't aware of the environment we're in, it would have been just easy for me to click on these links. And as you said, once you click, you don't know what they have. And as soon as you go, you realize your cards are compromised, your accounts are compromised. You could very well call the bank, and the bank is telling you, no, that's not what is on your account, when it's your account. I've had the experience of reading about a particular incident that took place internationally, and the actual owner of the account called the bank and could not get into their own account because they were hacked. And so these are real issues, and it will take a collective approach from both institutions. That's why we have now the Data Protection Act will be a critical part of our framework in Jamaica to help to remedy some of these issues. But as I said, they can be very simple, but they can also be very complex. So, and I would say maybe the next presentation, it will take a presentation for itself.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate all that you have said. And we have someone who's going to do the vote of thanks for us. this evening. So I'm going to invite Mrs. Linda Craigie Brown, to offer the vote of thanks to the presenters on our behalf. And we will close in prayer. This has been a wonderful time together. Mrs. Craigie Brown, you there? Yes.
Thank you so much, Rev. I hope you can all hear me very well.
Yes, we are hearing you very loudly.
I just want to say thanks be to God, who said in his word, with long life will I satisfy thee. And this presentation this evening has shown us in many ways how we can be satisfied over the long term, in the long life, with all the exciting presentations that makes one really want to look forward to retirement instead of being fearful about it, and embrace it in all its fullness. So let me thank the almost 150 participants, Rev. When I looked, it's 140 something that were here on behalf of the JBU Family Life Commission. Let me thank you all for coming and for remaining almost to the end and supporting this particular discussion. I'm thankful that we all learned. I'm not gonna say that I hope. I know that we all learned and we gained a lot from it, and that it has opened up even more, and that we will be seeking and searching for more answers to the whole question of retirement. So to Mrs. Faith McFarquhar-Gordon and Mr. Priestnell Warren, thank you both so much for both your presentations on the reasons why we need to plan for tomorrow and how we need to plan for tomorrow. And I can't even begin to highlight some of the things that you have presented there, but I just want to highlight, perhaps, considering the load on our children, considering what we want to be doing in the future, and then how we want to enjoy our retirement. And I think one of the outstanding things was building relationships before retirement, getting involved in things so that at retirement time we have help and we have persons on whom we can rely, and just putting the machinery in place and the funds in place to take care of that retirement. Thank you both so much. And thank you for answering our questions so well. And we're looking forward to that webinar in April. And I know that the information has perhaps by now been posted in our chat. To fellow Commissioner Dr. Maureen Irons Morgan, it was that makes us want to retire. Her way, look forward with excitement to the things that we can be doing in retirement. But to remember though that it impacts our lives, it impacts the roles that we play within our family, and therefore the need to develop fresh and new ways of living, fresh new rituals, fresh new self-care, perhaps fresh new lifestyle, and more importantly, trusting God's purpose to take us through. To presenter Mr. Craig Williams, who was supported by one or two members who from the audience, to look at how you prepared for tomorrow. And it's so important that we begin now to work with our young persons from schools or wherever, so that they plan for retirement. Thank you all, and we look forward to more of this type of discussion from the Family Life Commission. Thank you, Reverend Edwards, and your team for putting this on.
We thank you, fellow Commissioner, for thanking all of us. And all that is left for me to say that we are more than delighted that you chose to be online with us this evening to share in this webinar seminar. Just to let you know that this will be uploaded on the JBU YouTube, so that you will be able to access this, and you can go back and listen to the presentation, listen to the inputs so that you can make your list or determine what steps you are going to take or what particular action you will take arising from this. But that's another way in which you can do your follow-up. I don't know if Reverend Harding is online and if he has gotten here yet. If he isn't, we are just going to... Reverend Harding, are you there? Not seeing you. All right, we're going to close in prayer and thank you for a time well spent. We are happy that you joined with us this evening. Let us pray. And so, Lord, we thank you for this webinar that we have been able to hold this evening. What has been good for us is the opportunity to interact, the opportunity to speak and listen to each other, the opportunity to clarify questions that we may have had, but to which we did not have the answers we wanted. But you have provided some of these for us through our presenters. We pray, Lord, that you will help us as we continue to plan, knowing that it is your will that we make these plans because you have given clear directive through the Proverbs as to the importance of planning and the importance of taking steps to plan for tomorrow, knowing that we place all our lives in your hands as we do what we are expected to do and what we can do with the knowledge, with the skills, and the resources that you have given to us. So we ask, Lord, for your blessings upon every one of us. And we ask that your grace, your mercy, and your peace will be with all of us tonight and forevermore, we pray. Amen and amen. We also want to express our thanks as we close to Miss Kimberly Largay for hosting and for providing technical support in the background. Thank you so much, Kim, and thank you all for joining us this evening.
Thank
Good night.